all yours.
All right, well, hello everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for this SBIR STTR webinar. I know that this is going to be super beneficial for you. You're going to learn a lot here. So what's this about? It's funding your big idea, the SBIR STTR program at NASA, NIST, and NSF. So just a little bit about who's putting on this webinar. We are the Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center. We are a nonprofit organization. And what we do is we provide confidential, no-cost advisory training services to small business. So we put on webinars like this. We also do one-on-one advising, which we'll talk a little bit more about so this is... We're going to talk about it now. I thought we'd talk about it at the end, but we're going to talk about it now. We have all of these beautiful, lovely advisors that are local, that are our local Shasta and Trinity County team. So we personally serve the counties of Shasta and the county of Trinity. So anyone that is not located in Shasta or Trinity County within the state of California, there are service centers all across the United States. So here are most of our lovely advisors, and we have 40 plus more subject matter experts. So quick disclaimer, I'm just going to read this legally. The information provided in this webinar and any supplementary materials provided to the registrants are intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute professional, financial, or legal advice. No registrant should act or fail to act on any material contained in this webinar without obtaining the proper financial, legal, or other professional advice specific to their situation. The Northern California Small Business Development Center and its host, the HSB Program Foundation, specifically determines any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of their information presented in this webinar. All right, I feel like I'm like high school again. I'm going to kick it off to David Walker, who will be your presenter for today.
Hi, everybody. Thanks a lot. My name is David Walker. I'm director of the Shasta-Cascade Small Business Development Center. We're going to talk about SBIR. And SBIR, I've had a lot of experience with SBIR. I've been a part of teams that have won SBIRs, and I have a lot more experience with parts of teams that have lost them, which most people will tell you that. I've also been a proposal reviewer for the National Science Foundation off and on for the last 9 or 10 years. And for the last 30 years or so, I've been an entrepreneur, business owner, and things like that. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, this is the agenda. This is what I'm hoping we'll cover today. This will take about probably less than an hour. We've scheduled an hour and a half, and if we make it to an hour and a half, that's great, but I don't know if it'll actually take that long. We'll see. And we're recording this session, and you will be getting copies of the slides by email within the next day or so. So you'll be getting copies of the link to the recording and a copy of the slides. I'm going to talk about the introduction to SBIR. We're going to talk about some of the program details with the agencies, how it works, some tips and characteristics of accepted and rejected proposals, your next steps with NASA, NIST, and the NSF, and then we'll have a little summary, and we'll all start submitting proposals. So here's an introduction to SBIR. These are some successful companies, some of which I'm pretty sure you've heard of. And they all do different things, but what's interesting about them is they all have one thing in common, and that is they all started out with SBIRs, Small Business Innovation Research Awards. And that's what we're talking about, obviously. The, hang on just a second here. Okay, I think that's a little better. The SBIR and STTR, they're federal government programs. SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research. STTR stands for Small Business Technology Transfer. And yes, the feds are aware that STTR doesn't really, that acronym doesn't really work, but everybody's used to it by now, and so they're going along with it. But the bottom line is this. This is a federal government program that will provide either a grant or a contract to a small business to develop innovative technologies that meet a federal need, have a market opportunity, and some level of technical risk. In a nutshell, that's what SBIR and STTR does. The reason we're doing this is to increase awareness of the program, increase awareness of the resources available to help, and because we have a little bit of support from the Growth Accelerator Fund from the SBA to do this and to impart this information to you. Another reason we're doing that is we're located in Northern California. There's SBIRs, by the way, through, like Megan mentioned, throughout the country. We're in Northern California. If you're not in Northern California, there's an SBIR, or there's an SBDC. There's an SBDC near you. There are SBDCs throughout the country, so you can contact them. Most, if not all of them, have someone on staff that has an expertise in the SBIR program. Since 2016, the Northern California area, these 36 counties you see, have won a little over 22,500 SBIRs. Most of them are in this region, and it's kind of obvious why. San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, Alameda, and Contra Costa. Silicon Valley, San Francisco. 92% of the SBIRs in Northern California were awarded to companies in that region. The rest of the region the rest of the SBIRs were awarded in these counties. We are in Shasta and Trinity counties, and since 2016, our area has had a grand total of 2 SBIR awards, and if I'm not mistaken, they both went to the same company. And so that's really the reason we're doing this. A lot of these rural, less populated areas simply either don't know about the program or don't have the expertise to try to take advantage of the program. So that's the reason we're doing this this particular webinar, and we'll be doing more as the year goes on. By the numbers, SBIRs are mandated. Federal agencies that have research and development budgets that exceed $100 million are required to have an SBIR program. SBIRs and STTRs combined for about $3.5 billion spent each year. There's over 5,000 awards made every year. Through 2019, from the start of the program through 2019, the government's made a little over $54 billion in awards to small businesses, 179,000 awards to small businesses. There's been over 70,000 issued patents. That number is significantly higher because that number is old, by the way. There's over 1.5 million people employed with firms that received an SBIR award. And an interesting fact here, 1 in 9, on average, 1 in 9 SBIR awardee companies have received some level of equity financing. So it serves the program. If you can get an SBIR award, they tend to serve as a validator to a lot of venture capital and angel investors. So it's worth your while to pursue it if you qualify and if you have an idea that meets the federal needs. A little bit of a background, it started in 1977, so it's been around a while. It was signed into law by President Reagan in '82. The idea is, the goal of the program is for small companies to come up with innovations that meet R&D needs with the federal government. Another goal is to increase private sector commercialization of innovations from federal R&D funding. stimulate technological innovation, foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurships by underserved individuals, and foster technology transfer through cooperative research and development between small business and research institutions. So the bottom line is, SBIR awards can be made to companies, generally speaking, that have a novel and innovative product or solution that will fulfill a significant agency and/or public need. Now, we'll stop there. Do we have any questions so far, Megan?
We don't have anything in the chat yet.
Okay.
Everyone, we are monitoring the chat, so if you guys have any questions pop up, feel free to throw those in the chat, and anytime this comes up, I'll make sure to get answered.
Thanks. A lot of your questions will be answered as we go, I'm sure, but we do have a couple of spots where we'll pause and let you ask away. The bottom line with the program, the way it works is there's 11 government agencies that participate in the program, and there's 3 phases where SBIR awards are made. Phase 1 is concept development. Depending on the agency, they'll award anywhere from about $100,000, some of it might be a little less, to $256,000 or more for a 6 to 12-month program to develop a concept, to validate a concept that you might have, an idea. Depending on the agency, about 10 to 20% of proposals will get a Phase 1 award. If you're successful in your Phase 1 award, you can apply for a Phase 2, which is a prototype development phase, where you would make a proof of concept or a prototype. Depending on the agency, you can get up to about over $1.5 million. It's generally for a 24-month program, and the award rate is higher because there's a smaller pool. You can apply for a Phase 2 if you've already received a Phase 1. There's a couple exceptions, but they're very narrow, very limited. Generally speaking, you can't apply for a Phase 2 unless you've received a Phase 1. Phase 3, there's no direct SBIR funding. It's generally, what happens is, it's commercialization. What happens is you complete your Phase 2, and then Phase 3 is a government contract for you to provide those goods and services to the government, sell them to the government. It can be that, or it can be commercialization, selling them to anybody who will buy them, really. So those are the 3 phases for the SBIR program, and that's generally speaking how it works. There are, like I said, 11 different agencies that participate in the program. There are 5 agencies that participate in the lion's share of the program. The largest is the Department of Defense, and they'll give out contracts for SBIR awards. They're in the form of a contract. Health and Human Services is the second highest. The biggest part of that is the National Institute of Health. Almost all of theirs are grants, although they do give out some contracts. The Department of Energy is third. NASA has the 4th largest amount that they give out with SBIR awards, and the National Science Foundation gives out the 5th most. All the rest of the agencies do very much smaller amounts, and they're much less involved in the program. So what does SBIR and Sttr fund? Innovations, which is the I in SBIR. They fund innovative ideas, and they fund research that's going to lead to proof of concept or technical feasibility. They fund things that are responsive to the topic and the needs of the agency. What I mean by that is each agency will announce, here are the things that we're interested in funding. And it's up to the company to address those with proposals to go after those needs. It'll fund things with commercial potential and that have high technical risk. In order to participate in the program, you have to be a for-profit business. You have to be you have to be more than 50% U.S. owned by a U.S. individual. and independently operated. You have to have under 500 employees, including affiliates. And there's something to note here, over 50% of the awards are made to businesses with less than 10 employees. A lot of awards are made to businesses with 1 or 2 employees. In fact, I know with the National Science Foundation at least, you don't even need to be in business yet to apply. You do need to be in business once you start work on the proposal, once you start work on the project, but you don't need to be in business even to just apply. The work has to be done in the United States. All the work that is paid for through this project has to be done in the United States. You can't farm it out to a different country or perform it somewhere else. And the focus is on performing research and development. It's not just for purchasing equipment. And in fact, in a lot of programs, purchasing equipment isn't allowed. It isn't allowed as part of what you can use the money for. It's not for commercializing an already developed technology. And it's not for funding a low-risk technology that just needs capital. If you're just looking for something to bring your product to the market and it's already developed, this program isn't for you. Now, there's an SBIR program and there's an STTR program. The basic difference is STTR has a requirement that at least 30% of the contract has to go to a university or a research institution. So if you're part of a university that has developed a technology and the university is going to spin out a company for that, STTR can be a really cool way to fund it. Just be aware there are requirements, which you can see here. There are limits to the amount that you can subcontract, and the small business is always the applicant, and the small business is always the awardee. They're the ones that will manage the project. The other thing to note is that the STTR, like we said, you have to team with a nonprofit research institution. Usually that's a university. It can also mean a national lab or some other research institution. These are the agencies that participate in SBIR and STTR, and you'll notice they're the 5 big ones that we mentioned earlier: the Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, NASA, Energy, and the National Science Foundation. The agencies that only participate in SBIR are the rest of them: EPA, USDA, Homeland Security, Department of Commerce, Transportation, and Education. The other thing that we should point out is you may not want to judge an agency by its name. If you have an innovation, say, that improves propulsion, you may think, okay, well, maybe that's the Department of Transportation, but it may also be the Department of Energy. It may be NASA. And it will almost always be the National Science Foundation, because they'll fund close to anything as long as it's innovative and that there's an element of technical risk. Whereas places like the Department of Defense will have defense-related things that they'll want to fund. The Department of Energy will have energy-related things. The National Science Foundation is open to anything that has commercial potential, pretty much. Their limitations have to do with, if you're going to have to do testing on human research subjects, they don't want anything to do with it. If it's drug-related, they generally don't want anything to do with it. But other than that, they're open to pretty much anything as long as it's innovative and has commercial potential and an element of risk, technical risk. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So a little more about the program. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the funding is either via a grant or a contract, depends on the agency. There's no loan to pay back. You don't pay back this money. Nobody takes equity. It's non-dilutive. The company will own the intellectual property. A key thing, however, is that the government will retain march-in rights to that intellectual property. And some agencies will pay for patents with this, and some agencies won't. So it's going to depend on the circumstances and depend on the agency you go with. There's a restriction on the use of funds. You can only spend it the way you say you're going to spend it in your proposal. You can apply to different agencies for similar work, but you can only accept one award from different agencies for the same project. So you can apply to multiple agencies, but you can only accept one award for substantially the same work. The odds of getting funded vary from agency to agency and year to year, but generally speaking, in phase one, agencies will fund about between 1 in 8 and 1 to 15 proposals. I'm more familiar with the National Science Foundation than others, and I can tell you that in some years it's been 1 in 12, and some years it's been 1 in 10. Lately, it's been hovering around 1 in 8 proposals that will get funded. But some agencies, 1 in 15, it varies from agency to agency, but the bottom line is it's a lot. The odds are actually fairly high compared with other types of funding in a lot of other instances. And in phase two, agencies will generally fund about 1 in 3, and that's, like we said before, that's because they'll have fewer proposals because they're only going to allow phase one awardees to apply for phase two. And we've mentioned before about 1 in 9 are able to successfully obtain investment funding. I brought in this one. That's nationwide. Yeah,
oh, wow.
It's 1 in 9 I'm sorry, back up. That's at the National Science Foundation. 1 in 9 of the National Science Foundation SBIR companies have successfully obtained investment funding. So if you've received an SBIR award, it tends, like we said earlier, it tends to validate your technology. It tends to be something that angel investors tend to look upon favorably. I mean, you're getting money for your company. There's no equity. It's not dilutive. So it tends to improve your chances of getting looked at least by angel investors. One of the things I wanted to point out is a company called Blue River Technology. They were with the National Science Foundation. They won a phase 1 award. They won a phase 2 award. And before they even finished working on their phase 2 award, John Deere bought them out for $305 million. It can do wonders for your business if you have a technology that qualifies. So how are we doing on questions there, Megan?
I have questions in the chat. If anyone has a question, feel free to put it in the chat right now.
Okay, when you get these, this is a bit of an eye chart, and I apologize for that. When you get the slides here, there's going to be 3 or 4 slides that, as of the time we put this together, and it's been a few weeks at least, might be longer, these were where the different agencies were at, whether or not they participated in STTR, what the limits were in terms of phase 1 award amounts. For instance, the Department of Agriculture, their phase 1, the max you could get would be $100,000. The duration of the phase 1 work, Department of Agriculture, they're saying 8 months, for instance. The limit of the phase 2, $600,000 for agriculture. For the Department of Defense, it varies whether you're talking about Air Force or Army or other DARPA or other areas, and it can be up to about $1.5 million. And you can take a look at this. Phase 2 duration on all of them is going to be 2 years, pretty much. Talks about whether it's a grant or a contract, and the criteria that the agencies have announced what they're going to look at when they review your proposal. The criteria in making a determination as to whether they're going to fund your proposal or not. This is just what they've published. They're going to look, for instance, DoD. They're going to get your proposal and they're going to examine it for soundness, technical merit and innovation, the qualifications of the team, and the potential for commercialization. So, this might help. These are 4 more agencies with the same information, and these are the rest of the agencies, I think. Okay, so.
All right, we have some questions.
All right.
the stats that you shared a little bit earlier about how many people are funded 1 and 9, is there a place that they can pull up those stats and see?
sbir.gov. At sbir.gov, they'll list, you can find lists of, I think, every award since about 2015, maybe even earlier than that, 2010. You can find out pretty much every award. You can find a lot of information and a lot of stats. sbir.gov is a very good place for you to take a look.
Okay, and then are we going to be sharing the links to apply for the various funds, specifically asking about the NSF fund?
Yeah, there's a link at the end. sbir.gov has links to all of the agencies. With NSF, I can tell you right now, the link is seedfund.nsf.gov, SEEDFUND, seedfund.nsf.gov. And we'll talk about what the procedure is, because there's a little bit of a procedure to go through the NSF for the SBIR awards or proposals. We'll talk about that in a minute.
We have a unrelated question that I think I can answer, David, but let me know if I have to answer this fully. Someone on the webinar is realizing they're using existing technologies, so it's probably not for them. But they are interested in learning about any other grants or funding to accelerate the growth of their company. That I would say to meet with your local SBDC, whether you're a Green Chapter in the county, you can meet with us. We do a lot of funding sources and but if you're not in one of those counties, you can go through the SBDC website and the center that is specific to where you live. Is that a good and valid answer, David?
That's a valid answer. Yeah, SBDC. Yeah, go to your local SBDC and they can help you. It does vary place to place.
Place, company to company, state to state, county to county. Okay, and so for winning the proposals, are they available for? Are the winning proposals available for the public review?
Generally speaking, no, because a lot of the proposals are proprietary. Almost everybody wants to keep their innovations proprietary. There are sample proposals that some agencies will put up just as a sample proposal, saying this is what your SBIR proposal should look like. Health and Human Services does that. There's a couple, I think NASA might do that as well. They generally speaking, you won't see the proposals. You'll find an abstract of the winning proposals at sbir.gov. You'll find an abstract so you can see the kinds of things that certain agencies have funded. Anything else?
That is it for now. I do have a report that I am having background noise and I'm being hard to hear. We don't have any noise going on here, so I don't know if that's me to one participant. Are other people having issues hearing as well?
Well, okay. If we are, if you're not.
All right.
I'm sorry.
We just had another question come in. How far into phase 1 do you need to complete? I'm assuming that's a question.
How far do you need to what?
How far into phase 1 do you need to complete? And I'll maybe elaborate a little. Do you mean in order to apply for phase 1 or in order to apply for phase 2?
Yeah. Generally speaking, it varies. It really varies agency to agency, and it even varies at the level of the program director that you'll be dealing with within the agencies. Some of them are very, very flexible. We had one where, I've seen them where they'll want from phase 1, they'll want to do enough testing so that they'll be assured that the thing is actually going to work, and then they'll fund the prototype in phase 2. But sometimes it's like I was involved with one where all we did was we brought it up a certain distance. We weren't ready to make a prototype yet, but we got the phase 2 award anyway. So it'll vary, and it's a really big program with a lot of different program directors, a lot of different needs, and so it's gonna depend on what it is you're doing and what the needs of the particular agency are.
All right, I think that's all we have for now.
Okay. Talk a little bit about how it works. And we've gone through this a little bit, but we'll go through it a little more. These are the 11 agencies that participate. This is how they, generally speaking, how they work. They'll issue a solicitation, which will list the topics, the contact within the agency, the opening and closing dates for the window in which you can submit your proposal, and instructions, what the proposal needs to look like, how it needs to be structured, your budget, everything. The solicitation will have all of that information in it. You submit the proposal. Small business will write the proposal and submit it in accordance with the instructions and the timing. I almost said destructions, which is what one of my kids used to say. The kid's now 40 years old, but he used to say destructions instead of instructions. Anyway, all right. And then those proposals are evaluated. They're evaluated by peers and subject matter experts. You're not going to fool a reviewer, generally speaking. The reviewers I've met, they're experts in the field. They're either in the National Science Foundation, they'll use technical experts and commercial experts, people that understand the market of what it is you're doing, as well as people that understand what the state of the art is in the area in which you're working. And then there's a financial and process review, and you'll get an award, or you won't get an award. And if you don't get an award, you can get a debrief. I believe all of the agencies allow for a debrief, where they'll tell you why you didn't get the award, and they'll give you the responses that the evaluators came up with. Process will take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. I've seen it go 8 months, depending on how busy the agencies are. But so it's not a quick process, but we're also talking about money that you don't have to pay back. So, take the good with the bad, I suppose. This is a schedule. This is from sbir.gov. Actually, this particular one isn't. But neither here nor there. There's a very similar schedule to this at sbir.gov. This is a solicitation schedule for 2022. And so you can see, for instance, Department of Agriculture, generally they're going to open sometime in June, and you'll have till November to submit your proposal. There are a couple you'll see here that you can submit the proposal pretty much anytime. Take a look at NIH grants. There's multiple due dates, and you can submit it pretty much anytime during the year. Same thing with the National Science Foundation, although they don't accept just any proposal. You have to qualify, and we'll get into that. But this is a little bit of a timeline that you can refer to. There are also registration requirements, and you should, if you're going to submit, you should try to take care of these as quickly as possible, especially your SAM registration. SAM stands for System of Account Management. Don't quote me, but I think it's System of Account Management. I don't remember, but I think it's it. Anyway, it's a government registration where you go in. These are all free, by the way. They're free to register with, but it's a System of Award Management. That's what it is. System of Award Management. Yeah. SAM will take the longest, probably, and I've seen it take 3-4 weeks. It depends on how busy they are. But you're going to need a SAM registration. Until November, you're going to need a DUNS number, Dun and Bradstreet number. In April, rather, they're going to do away with that. By April, DUNS will no longer be required, and they'll use just the number that you create in SAM. And then the different agencies want different things. DOE and Health and Human Services want you to register for grants.gov, but you don't need to do that for Defense and NASA. So you'll see that. You'll see that Some agencies are going to require other things that other agencies won't. So pay attention to it. It's all going to be in the solicitation. What your solicitation is going to tell you exactly what you need to register for, and do that first. But they're all going to require you to register in SAM. So, you know, doesn't hurt to go ahead and do that. System of Award Management. You will have a principal investigator. The principal investigator is going to be the main person in charge of the performing the award, the tasks under the award, the one that's going to manage the thing. The principal investigator needs to be employed by the small business at the time of the award. It is not, the principal investigator is not required to have a PhD or an MD, but he or she is required to have appropriate expertise to oversee the project scientifically and technically. So your PI, your principal investigator, is going to be an important person. It's going to be an important part of your team that will help, in some cases, make or break whether or not you get an award. So before you do this, ask yourself, is your technology innovative? Is there a market for your idea? What stage are you in? Are you past the SBIR stage? If you've already proven technical feasibility and you just need funds to commercialize it, you're pretty unlikely to qualify. And the other final question, are you ready to work 51% or more on your small business? Because that's going to be a requirement for you to get this award. All right, how are we doing?
No new questions in the chat. I think we can be putting those ahead of time and as they come up, and I will read them on these slides.
Okay. Great.
We got one in it. It says, where can we find the specific need that we can do?
The specific needs would be on the solicitation. I'm going to talk in a little bit about the NASA solicitation, for instance. There's going to be, the solicitation is about 300 or 400 pages long. Very little of it is about what kind of proposal you have to write and that sort of thing. About 200, 250 pages are going to be the things that they're looking for. The National Science Foundation is open to almost anything you can come up with. So it'll be on the solicitation, and it's going to vary obviously from agency to agency.
Okay, and for the concept phase, how technical do those proposals have to be?
They don't have to be technical as long as they're innovative, but I will say that I've yet to see a non-technical SBIR contract or grant be awarded that didn't have some level of technical issues, because it funds research and development. And so by funding research and development, that denotes that there's a level of technical issues that have to be addressed. And I'd also say it probably depends on the agency. And it depends on the topic you're addressing. So yeah, how technical does it have to be? Usually there has to be some level, of technology involved, but
are there milestones that are set up within each phase to ensure accountability and demonstrate feasibility?
Yeah, each phase stands on its own. So the milestones are going to be developed by you in your proposal. And then after your proposal is accepted, you're going to work with your program director at the agency as you go and as you meet the different milestones. And with the agencies I've dealt with, we're talking about R&D here, right? So it can go in a number of different directions. We don't know the answers. So they tend to be very flexible with the milestones. If you're going along and you expect this to happen, but it doesn't, something else happens, they're usually pretty good about saying, okay, we need to deviate. We need to reestablish what these milestones are. Because, we're talking about R&D. There's questions that need to be answered here. So, yeah, it's it's you, it's the small business that proposes the milestones and proposes what it is you're going to do to get to demonstrate feasibility or a proof of concept.
And is this program only for information technology / software innovation, or also for robotics?
It's for all. It could be information technology, software innovation. It could be for robotics, AI. We've had people that have submitted things for new kinds of sporting equipment. It's different from agency to agency. It's going to be different. The Department of Defense may be looking for a new kind of firing pin for a tank or something. The Department of Energy may be looking for some kind of innovations in solar or wind or something. The Department of Education might be looking for a new way to teach classes or some kind of innovation in that area. So it can cover all kinds of different things, and it's going to differ from agency to agency.
All right, and then Matt Switzer says recommendations for both application. I think we're about to jump into that. So
I'm about to jump into that.
Any specific questions on the tips? We'll get to that next question.
Okay, well, here are some recommendations before starting the application. First thing, start early. If you're going to, when you're getting ready to make your proposal, believe me, it's going to take longer than you think. We say here at least 10 weeks before the due date. That's probably about right. They ask for a lot of things, and so start early. Prepare your key bios. And get ready to, get your contractors lined up. If you're going to have some subcontractors on the program, get them lined up. Start early would be my first suggestion. Then put together your team and schedule. Assign the proposal to sections of your team. If you're going to be working with a team that's going to help with the, do the stuff, get them in place now. Get them under non-disclosure agreements and get them ready to help. We've had companies where we've been able to assign different sections to different people, and that can help as well. So if you have that ability, I encourage you to take advantage of that. And then remember your audience. You're going to have your Einsteins and you're going to have your Edisons on the review committees. And remember that you're talking to people who have expertise in the area that you're proposing. So within the guidelines of the proposal, make sure you address all of the things that you think they might come up with, and remember you're really trying to convince them. You're trying to convince the people who are going to be reviewing your proposal. Be honest and be thorough, and they will see right through any, what I termed as intellectual laziness. Just make sure you address the proposal as though you're addressing experts in the field, because you will be. And follow the proposal guidelines. Many times we've seen proposals that come out that don't follow the guidelines because the person proposing was so convinced that their idea is so great and so wonderful that we'll just read it, we'll look at it, and we'll go, oh my goodness, we have to fund this. It's just so wonderful. It doesn't work that way. Follow the proposal guidelines, because the bottom line is a program manager who's going to manage, who's going to make the decision on whether or not to give you money, is going to think, if you can't follow simple proposal guidelines, why should any reviewer believe that you can conduct successful technical, medical, educational, or commercial research? Why would they think you'd be able to manage a full program if you couldn't keep to within 5 or 10 pages on a proposal or whatever the guideline is? Address the topic. If they ask for solar, don't propose wind. You may think you have a better idea, but don't propose your better idea unless you talk to the program director first. You talk to the program manager first and say, hey, you're talking about this, but what if we wanted to do this? That's the way you do it. You don't just write a proposal and say, you know, I know you said solar, but I'm going to propose wind. Now, talk to the program manager first, the person, and you'll have that person. They'll be identified in the solicitation. And attend an SBIR conference. There are national conferences that last 2-3 days that you can go to, probably virtually right now, but that you can go to, where you can talk to the people that make the decisions about these proposals. One is Tech Connect. They've been doing SBIR shows for a long, long time, and you can Google them and find where their latest one is, where the next one's coming. And then the programs themselves, the agencies themselves, put on an SBIR road show. They've been doing this for a few years now, where, and both of these are good things for you to go to, where you can talk to the program directors and ask them, you know, okay, here's my idea, what do you think? And get feedback and get some guidance. It's worth doing, very much worth doing. We mentioned this, check out sbir.gov. There's a tremendous amount of information there. It talks about upcoming solicitations, links to the agencies, and like we said, data on past awards. Check that out. It's worth it. And don't forget Sttr. A lot of people will file or submit a proposal under SBIR, but they forget about doing Sttr. There's reasons why it might make more sense for you to do Sttr. If you're working with a university or a research institution, it's probably smarter to submit it through Sttr rather than SBIR if it's available to you. And again, look at the proposal, look at the solicitation rather, and check out the guidelines for both. And talk to the program officer or program director or program manager, whatever the different agency calls the person that's in charge of the topic you're going to respond to. It's worth doing. Let them know what it is you're doing. Let them know what you plan to do, and just get their feedback. Hey, what do you think of this? This is, you know, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And just listen to what they say. They can provide some insights, and many times they're happy to do it. And so it doesn't hurt, and I think it's well worth doing. So how are we doing?
All right. We do not have any question yet.
Okay. We're doing great on time, so that's good. All right. We can go briefly about characteristics. Do we have a question? No? Okay.
How do you contact the program manager?
They'll be listed in the solicitation. The solicitation will have a list of the topics, and each topic will have a contact. It'll have, generally speaking, an email and a phone number and a name. So yeah, just contact that person. Okay, these are some common reasons that proposals have been rejected out of hand before even going to the expert reviewers. Missing parts, non-responsive to the topic. In other words, you know, they like at National Science, or well, like I said before, talking about they want something about solar and you respond wind. That's non-responsive to the topic, and they'll get rejected out of hand. They're over budget. If you you see the budget limits, you know, if the budget limit is 250,000 and you propose 275, it'll get rejected out of hand. Many of the agencies have deadlines for submission. If you're late, they will reject it. The NSF used to have deadlines at specific dates at 5 o'clock Eastern time. If they received it at 5:02, they'd reject it, and you'd have to wait for the next go round. The other reason for rejection, a common reason, is the inclusion of extras. Almost always, and you can talk to another reason to talk to the program director or the program manager about this. You might want to, you might think, hey, here's an article about it, here's a copy of my patent, here's this. If they didn't ask for it, it's generally speaking, it's not a good idea to include it in the proposal. What they're asking for is what they want, and you shouldn't try to convince them by throwing more data at them, generally speaking. More common reasons for rejection. The principal investigator or the team lacks the necessary expertise to complete the project. If you don't have the expertise, make sure you have the expertise to complete the project through a subcontractor or something. There's an unclear task plan or a lack of technical detail. That can be a reason for rejection. And this is an interesting one because it tends to be subjective, where the reviewers will decide there's really a lack of innovation. Instead, it's an incremental improvement. And that's a very subjective thing at times. I've heard it described as an innovation is the difference between a flip phone and an iPhone. But an incremental improvement would be the difference between an iPhone 5 and an iPhone 6. That's how they would view this. So they're looking for innovation. They're not looking for an incremental improvement usually. Another reason for rejection, what was proposed is too ambitious or they're unlikely to complete it. A lack of awareness of the state of the art, research that's already been done by others, a poor commercial potential, and no plan for phase 2. People, when you submit, you want to pay attention to what you're going to have at the end. There's going to be a place for you to talk about the commercial use for the product, the market for the product, and what you plan to do in phase 2 to get there. And when you gloss over that, that can be a reason for rejection. Some characteristics of good proposals. They're a solution to a real problem. You've got a good awareness of the state of the art. You know what's out there. You know what the cutting edge technology is. It's relevant to the topic. You've got a good commercial potential, good market potential. It's well written, succinct, and logical. You've got proper research techniques. In other words, your research plan that you have in your proposal, you're going to say, we're going to do this, this, and this, and we're going to get to this milestone. And maybe that milestone is going to change, but it makes sense. It's a logical progression to get to that milestone from a technical point of view. Well-designed and detailed experimental plan. So, how are we doing?
Any questions yet?
Okay. We're going to look real quickly at the NASA, NIST, and NSF solicitations. We're not going to look very much at NIST because they're releasing it this month, but they haven't released it yet, at least not as of this morning when I looked. So there's not a lot to talk about with NIST yet, but we'll talk about NASA, just so to give you an idea. The NASA SBIR program, phase 1, is idea generation. They're offering up to $150,000. If you're going to submit an SBIR, it's going to be a 6-month program. STTR will last 13 months. Phase 2, which you won't worry about until you finish your phase 1, is prototype development. They offer up to $1 million for a 24-month project. And phase 3 is commercialization. And so they also have post-phase 2 opportunities. So you can see between phase 2 and phase 3, they offer more awards. And a lot of agencies do this. They'll offer supplemental funding, either in between awards or during the awards, if you want to bring in and do some, related, but related activities, but maybe not the exact same activity that you're being funded for. There may be ways to get that. And you'll see this thing here called I-Core. I'll talk about that very briefly. I-Core stands for Innovation Core. It was developed because it was actually developed at the National Science Foundation. NASA, Department of I believe Air Force and Department of Energy, I think, also use I-Core. It came out about 10 years ago. The National Science Foundation found that they were spending a lot of money on grants and not seeing a lot of commercial success out of it. So what they did was they found a concept called customer development, which included an element called customer discovery, which Megan knows a lot about. The idea of validating your idea before going to market, talking to your customers ahead of time. And I-Core formalizes that in a program. They'll have you go through a program that was designed by a guy named Steve Blank, who is a professor at Stanford and I think UC Berkeley. And he developed a way or ways to ask potential customers questions to validate your market and to validate your idea and get answers that aren't going to be biased because, you know, hey, nobody likes to be told their baby's ugly, right? And so, you know, they tend, when they ask questions, what do you think about my product? And they tend to ask their mom or their Aunt Sadie or whatever, and you're not going to get a real response that way. So saying all of that to say that NASA includes an option to go through an I-Core program, and so does NSF. In fact, I think NSF actually forces it, but it's well worth it. It's interesting. It's it'll give you an idea, and it'll let you know if you need to pivot a little bit. It's a very good program. NASA's put out their solicitation on January 6th. You can find it if you Google NASA SBIR, you can navigate to it. The preparation instructions are in Chapter 3. The proposals are due on March 9th at 5 p.m. Eastern. You apply via their electronic handbook. Phase 1 for this is $150,000 and up to 6 months. And we mentioned I-Core. There's also TABA, T-A-B-A. I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it provides supplemental funding for Phase 1 awardees to get help, professional help, but not, you know, that kind of professional help. Professional help with getting your project to market and from commercial experts. Another interesting program to look into is TABA. A couple of things about the NASA SBIR. I just wanted to point these out because these are in the solicitation. These are examples of things you need to look at when you're going through a solicitation. NASA has these right there. They're saying offerers should indicate in the proposal that a comprehensive patent review has been completed to avoid possible infringement. They want to make sure that you have the freedom to operate in whatever it is you're proposing to do. NASA will reject any proposal package that contains classified information. Another interesting thing. This is an example of what your proposal is going to look like. This is what NASA is asking for in the proposal, these 11 items. You know, some are easy. Contact information, that's easy. Certifications, that's generally fairly easy as well. Your proposal summary and your budget and your technical proposal are going to take a lot of time. And this is why you're going to spend 10 weeks responding to the proposal. And then these other things. This is a typical thing that you'll see, instructions that you'll find on how to submit a proposal to an agency. And like I said, this is in Chapter 3 of NASA's solicitation. And easiest way to get there, Google NASA SBIR 2022, you'll find it. Or go to sbir.gov, there's going to be a link there. This is, I put this in because I thought it was interesting. Letters expressing general technical interest or letters of funding support commitments are not required or desired and will not be considered during the review process, but if you send them in, it's going to count toward your page limit. This is the complete opposite, for instance, of what NSF wants. NSF would love to see 3 letters of support from you. So it's important, NASA doesn't want to see any, so it's important that you review what it is each agency wants from you when you submit your proposal, and that you meet those criteria, and you pay attention to things like this. We'll move on. Okay, NIST is going to release their solicitation. NIST is part of the Department of Commerce, by the way. And they're going to release theirs during January. Last I looked, I haven't seen it come out yet, so I can't tell you exactly what it is they're asking for. But they're offering up to $100,000 for a phase 1, and if it's successful, you can apply for phase 2, which goes up to $400,000. Nothing to sneeze at, but it's not the $1 billion that NASA is doing. Still, I wouldn't turn it down. The National Science Foundation, I wanted to bring it up because it doesn't really have the deadlines that the others do. They do things a little differently. They'll, generally speaking, they'll fund almost anything as long as it's innovative, there's a level of technical risk, and there's a commercial market for the product. They have a list on their website as you go through. They have a list of different topic areas, and it'll say manufacturing, nanotechnology, sensors, AI, robotics. It has just everything you can imagine. It even has a topic called Other. So if you don't qualify under any of those, you could probably qualify under Other. But the way they have you submit is a little different. They want you to submit a project pitch to see if your idea might be a good fit for NSF funding. Project pitch consists of 4 things: 500 words on the technology and the innovation that you're going to propose, 500 words on the technical objectives and challenges, 200 words on the market opportunity, and 200 words on your company and team. There's an online portal that you can navigate to from seedfund.nsf.gov, and again, you can reach it by Google or through sbir.gov. And instructions right there, it's easy. But if you can describe your innovation, describe the challenges you're going to address in what it is you're going to do, and the market opportunity in your team, they'll get back to you, usually within about 2 weeks, and they'll say one of 3 things. They'll say, go away and don't ever darken our door again. Or they'll say, please submit a proposal. We love your idea. Or they'll say, hey, can you give us a little bit more information? And you can do all of that at seedfund.nsf.gov. One thing I would suggest, if you're going to do this, write these things up, have somebody look at it, go to your SBDC and have them provide feedback. Find an SBIR expert at your local SBDC and have them just give you some feedback on what it is you're doing. It can really help before you do it. NSF, phase 1 is up to $256,000 for a 6 to 12 months project. I think if that's TTR, I think it's a 12-month project. Funding areas, this is directly from them. We fund startups across nearly all technology areas and markets like artificial intelligence, energy, medical devices, robotics, semiconductors, and many more. And they're right when they say many more. So, any questions? How are we doing?
Anyone in the chat?
Okay. Well, I think that's it. I think that's what I've got. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll tell you that if you're in Shasta or Trinity counties, you can contact us. You can call me. That my number is 530-222-8323. Emily will probably answer unless she's a jury duty condemning people to prison. Our website is shastasbdc.org. If you're not in Shasta or Trinity counties, Google SBDC near me or where it is you're located, and you'll find your local SBDC, or you can go to the national website. The link is there. The rest of these are our Shasta SBDC local social media stuff. Copy of this will be on our YouTube channel. You'll get a link, and we'll send you copies of the presentation. What am I forgetting, Megan?
I think that's about it. I think we covered it all. Got a lot of thank yous. You're awesome. Great information.
Good. Okay. I just realized I made a mistake. I forgot to get the link to we always have a review process. We always have a, what do you call it? Survey. A survey about how we did. And let me get out of this thing, and that way I can see we'll stop sharing. Okay, we have a survey, and we'll send you the link in the email. Please fill out the survey. It's the way we improve. It's the way we get better and get ideas for what it is you're looking for in terms of workshops and webinars and that sort of thing. We have thick skin. Tell us what we did wrong, please. Like I said, it's the way we improve. So.
We have one question that did come in, and they're asking, would you be able to critique the proposal and ask that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll give you feedback on that as well. And, you know, we don't do it for you, but we do provide advice, and you can take it or you can leave it. It's free. Hopefully you don't get what you paid for. But, you know, we're funded by the SBA in the state of California just for this. So in a way, you've already paid for it with your taxes. So, okay. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Contact your SBDC, and yeah, I guess we're done, huh?
I think we are.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.